Peter Elsewhere and I are great friends. We have such similar game design philosophies. We both love deep character customization, interesting decision-making trees, asymmetrical game design, and game balance. Wait, what does this video say?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
All jokes aside, I'm Zarek Odinsky, the lead designer of Indominant at Odinsky Gaming, and Peter and I really have become great friends, and we do share a lot of game design philosophies. We just express those in different ways in our games. And it's really cool how you can have similar philosophies and express those in different ways in game roles. Today, we're going to be doing something a bit different, and I'm going to be reacting to parts of one of his videos called Balance versus Symmetry that he released in November 2024. And before we get into it, I just want to ask you to please go and watch his video. He has a lot of really great points, and he talks about a lot more than what I'm going to show here. We're only going to take a look at a few parts so that we can sort of establish the same baseline level of understanding of these terms. And he gets into some really great points, and I just want to add my perspective and thoughts on game balance in TTRPGs, and it really applies to a lot more than just TTRPGs. It applies to video games and other media as well. So with that, let's get started. Make sure you use your super strength to smash the like button and subscribe to our channel so that you can keep up to date with everything that we release about Indominant and all of our game design videos. The Indominant Backerkit campaign for the Supers Information Codex, which is our player's handbook, is going live on April 8th this year. So make sure you follow our campaign so that you can get notified when we launch. Also, please join our Discord server. We have a lot of awesome people in our Discord server that talk about both our game and other games, and we're very active and respond to people. All the links for all of that are down below in the description. So let's go ahead and get started with this first bit about game balance.
So let's define balance. So I'm going to use the term balance to refer to numerical equality among options available to players in a tabletop role-playing game. So like in a game like D&D 5e, you've got several classes to pick from. The classes would be balanced if each of them can contribute significantly to a given scene, that they feel powerful and impactful, that their numbers scale appropriately, that no one option absolutely blows the others out of the water as far as impact goes. It has to do with parity among options on a power scale specifically. So that's balance.
So I think this is a great definition and I fully agree with it. One thing I do want to emphasize though is that balance goes far beyond just the raw numbers. He does mention this, but it's something that I really want to focus on in this video and my discussion about balance. Balance is not just about, dealing the same amounts of damage for the same resource costs, but it's also about being and feeling, which is a really important part about it, like the amount of effectiveness that a given character outputs is equal to their fellow party members. Randomness of the dice aside. A character that deals a lot of damage can be balanced with a character that just supports and protects their allies. This is not a hard science and it has a lot to do with feel, like I mentioned, but you can use the numbers to inform your game design and your balance decisions and guide you towards that state of balance. Now let's hear what Peter has to say about symmetry.
Including some outliers. All right, let's define symmetry. Symmetry is the even availability of options and decisions available to players. So to break that open a little bit more, what I mean is that symmetrical design means that any given character has a similar number of options and abilities available to them. They don't have to work necessarily the same way, but they have a similar level of breadth.
So using this definition of symmetry, we could say that symmetry is something like every character can make an attack with a weapon, but there isn't much mechanical difference between those different weapons and attacks. Asymmetry, on the other hand, would be something where a mage can drop a meteor on their enemies, while a master swordsman can only swing and slash one enemy at a time. Here, Peter goes on to use D&D 4th edition as an example of a game that has a lot of symmetry in its design. So now let's hear what Peter has to say about the combination of balance and symmetry.
So I think there's a lot of great things about 4th edition D&D. I played it for years, but it's so symmetrical and so balanced that it became homogeneous. A homogeneous game is one in which none of the options feel all that special, either from a power differential standpoint or a breadth of options standpoint. When everyone is the same, then no one is really all that unique.
This is sort of the crux of what really separates symmetry and balance in my mind. The caveat here is that feeling super is a bit generic and potentially misleading. The key factor I want to focus on is that feeling super in the same way is what creates this homogeny or homogeneity that Peter is talking about. We'll dive into that more here and talk about why I think balance is a very undervalued tool in game design. But before we do, I just want to remind you again to please go like and subscribe to Peter's channel and watch this video. I've linked it down below. He talks about a lot more than what I've shown here, and he makes a lot of great points. And he even proposes a barbarian rework for D&D 5th edition that he ended up making a full video breakdown of in a later video. This video and the following barbarian rework video are actually what incited me to reach out to Peter and propose that we collaborate on a big community challenge. And that challenge is the GetBarbaric challenge. Peter and I have videos explaining that I've also linked below, but I really want to invite you to give those a watch and then submit your GetBarbaric character concept. The final date for submissions is February 28th, and on March 1st, Peter and I are going to be live streaming on his YouTube channel, and we're going to watch and review every single submission. Okay, so back onto the topic. Balance and symmetry are separate, and furthermore, they are also not tied together, like a lot of people think they are. You do not have to make the character options in your game symmetrical to make them balanced. As Peter said, it's the combination of balance and symmetry together that create the homogeneous and less than exciting experience in a game. You can have balance by having that same level of effectiveness that I mentioned earlier while giving very different options to different types of characters. Let's use Indominant, our superhero game, to look at an example. In Indominant, we have many different archetypes, but let's just look at the Guardian and Blaster, for example. A Blaster archetype is a ranged damage dealer, but they're very vulnerable and weak if their enemies hit them. They're fragile. On the other hand, the Guardian is more of a defensive, durable fighter that gets up close and controls the battlefield to protect and empower their allies. The Guardian can taunt the enemies to bring the attention to themselves so that the enemies attack them instead of their Blaster ally protecting them. These two archetypes feel equally impactful even though the Guardian isn't dealing very much damage. And the reason is they're empowering and enabling their Blaster ally to do their job. And they can even increase the damage that their Blaster ally can deal by granting them dominance on their attacks and other things like that. Lastly, I want to talk about why balance is so important to me, and for all games, really. It's important because if you have balance in your game between the different character options available, then it really gives the players the freedom to be creative and make the choices that they really want to make. Generally, you need to have a wide breadth of different and interesting options to support this balance, but we'll save that topic for another video. Without balance, character customization and player choice just don't exist. The argument of you can choose the weaker option isn't valid in my opinion because you have to knowingly decide to choose a weaker option in spite of the fact that it's weak, even if you're not an optimizer or a power gamer. Some people may not have much issue with something like this, but there will always be some level of reluctance to make a poor or weak choice that you know is not the best choice, even if the idea is interesting or the themes are very fun and unique. If someone is playing a game to have fun, they don't want to intentionally lose or increase the likelihood that they're going to fail. It's just the nature of being a human and playing games. Another argument that is pretty common is that choosing a weaker option can make the game more challenging, and overcoming challenges can be a lot more fun. I agree that overcoming challenges is fun, but I disagree with this reasoning against game balance because the player should not have to intentionally choose an option that weakens their characters so that they can have a challenge in a TTRPG. That is something that should be decided by the group and determined by the game master when they create encounters. The last reason that I think game balance is much more important than a lot of people say it is that it mitigates the problem where one character can just completely outshine their fellow group members. And it prevents players from accidentally making poor decisions while they're creating their character. I don't think that's where decisions should matter. In combat, during tactical play, is where your decisions should have a lot more weight to the outcome of your success. Having balance between character options means that the players are free to choose what they want, rather than having to fight against their internal desire to choose what is best for their character, and instead they can choose what seems like the most fun and interesting option and never have sort of a doubt or bad feeling about the choices that they made. So with all of that said, thank you very much for joining me today, and I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below about game balance and symmetry and what you think on game balance and if it's an important part of game design or an important part of what makes you think a game is good or fun. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well, and I will see you next time.